Donald Trump's inauguration has marked a bold return with sweeping initiatives, setting a dynamic tone for his second term, from energy independence to the delayed TikTok ban. His administration's pushing forward with policies that promise to reshape industries as well as international markets. Let's head to Florida now. We're joined by Brad Gastworth from Unearthing Opportunities. Great to see you as always.
Great to be here, Aaron.
All right, there is a lot to get through. Let's talk about Trump's immediate executive orders. What does it suggest about his priorities, do you think, for his second term?
Yeah, I mean, there was no shortage of executive orders, Aaron. I mean, they're across the board, across different industries. Immigration took a major hit. You guys just spoke about that. But I mean, it shows that he's going to be very proactive and move quickly. So I think the markets responded well to some of these things that he did on the tariff side. It looks like he had a little bit of a delay, didn't come in swinging the bat aggressively, but he made it known that it's under review and it'll likely happen. On the TikTok side, certainly mentioned that it looks like they're going to get a little bit of a pause in terms of an overall stoppage here in the U.S., but I think there's broader things happening there as well.
This is an incredible situation, right? I don't think we've ever seen anything like it. You think about the stadium where he's signing with that that black text or his name on all those executive orders, trying to say to the people, we're bringing the government to you, literally throwing the pens that he's using to sign these executive orders back at people as well. It was just an extraordinary day. What do you make of it all? Is it just symbolism? Of course, as a president, he's never going to be more powerful than that day one. He had promised to be a dictator on day one. Did he deliver?
I think he did. I think there's a lot of people disappointed and upset who didn't support him and who don't support his ways and views. Ultimately, he came in and sort of executed on what he said he was going to do for the most part. I mean, there's a lot of things that he personally thought of and ran for, and immigration was certainly one where he went certainly very aggressive, where there's certain states that are upset with some things that he's looking to change. In terms of energy, that was very well, sort of expected. And that was also, I mean, he came in strong with, removals of certain Biden programs.
Talk to us about the 75-day delay of the TikTok ban, how it could, I guess, fix negotiations, reshape negotiations around US ownership. I get the sneaking suspicion that when it comes to TikTok, it is being used as leverage for a much broader conversation with China. I also have this sneaking suspicion that while they don't agree on much of the actions and decisions taken by Joe Biden over the past couple of months when it comes to long-range missiles to Ukraine is designed to help end the war once Trump needs that leverage. How much is TikTok and Ukraine's actions all about gaining leverage and the art of the deal?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I agree with all of that, Aaron. I mean, I do think that part of it is to sort of go against Biden. I think there's a little bit of tension between the two, and now that Trump is the president, I think he's coming in again with that, powerful voice. I think ultimately the 75 ban for TikTok, I think the reason we're getting those 75 days is to find a good suitor here in the U.S. In the terms that Trump will approve. So I think ultimately, I know Musk certainly wants that asset. It's a very valuable asset with 170 million U.S. subscribers, having tremendous visibility to a good demographic. It's a very solid asset. And I think ultimately Trump wants to find ways to keep that asset here in the United States, at least the U.S. portion. And I think that's why the 75 days delays taking place. Now, will it be Musk-led consortium that buys it, Musk himself? Will it be Oracle? Will it be some other, billionaire that has interest? I think, all are on the table. I mean, obviously Musk is somebody who wants it, I think, the most. It would be fit in very well with X, but I think truly that's the reason for the 75 delay here.
Yeah, interesting to see that X, just over the past couple of days, have also announced this new vertical video section on the X platform in the US that feels very much like a precursor to some sort of TikTok deal.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly does, Aaron. I think, it fits in well. I mean, it's a very valuable asset. There's no surprise that Musk wants it. I mean, remember, it was about a year ago, maybe it was a year and a half ago when when this announcements first came on buying it from a U.S. buying the U.S. asset. And I mean, there's a lot of consortiums that want it. So I mean, we might see some crazy number to purchase the United States portion of TikTok, but I think it's there's a lot of people in the mix that want this asset.
Yeah. Can he afford it? I mean, you think about, I'm talking about Musk here, you think about when Musk bought Twitter and way overpaid for something that, you buy a brand and then you kill the brand and you change the name. It's kind of like, why not do it anyway? Can he afford this? We keep being told he's the richest man in the world, but I mean, everyone has limits, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how he can sort of leverage the stock that he owns from Tesla, et cetera. So I think there's banks that are willing to do business with him because of his power and because now he is the richest man in the world. So, he'd be able to get banks to, leverage some of the assets or use the assets as collateral and allow it. I think I mean, will it be by himself? I don't think if he wins it, it would be by himself. I think he would do what he did with Twitter and find other people to come in on that purchase. I think ultimately, I think that I think he's probably the front runner. I think that consortium or the Microsoft Oracle one is interesting, but ultimately, I do think it gets sold. I think that's the delay. I don't think it gets stopped 100%. I think there's going to be a way to salvage it, given its importance here in the United States now.
Let's talk about the External Revenue Service. There's obviously the IRS. Now, the ERS, how realistic do you think Trump's tariff-based revenue goals will be? A lot of opponents say that if you shove 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, 100% tariffs on BRIC countries, it ends up costing American consumers. Obviously, in the long term, the idea is that it allows American businesses to take the place of foreign businesses, but that's not going to happen overnight. There are some who say that it may even crash the US economy, these tariffs forcing prices up. What's your view?
Yeah, and these are all good points, Aaron. I think my perspective is I think tariffs, these other countries tariff United States products. So I think it's actually a very good move to get money back for your products and things that are sold overseas coming in, having that large tariff to get into the ERS, if you will. Now, the magnitude of them is the thing that sort of is the head scratcher, and will that have an impact to inflation, have inflationary, more inflationary metrics here in the United States? I think it certainly could cause that, right? If you have certain automobile parts or certain widgets that are made overseas and now they're tariffed and they come in, now is that end good that much more expensive? I think it does get ultimately passed to the consumer. But I think it's a good way of doing business. Again, if you look at our cars and electric vehicles overseas, they're tariffed at a significant rate. So it makes sense to have something similar on our side. Now, should it be across the board blatantly? I don't think so. But that's his decision. That's what he's going at. I mean, our country's in significant debt. We need to find a way out, and I think this is at least a way that makes sense. Now, will it? Again, I do think it will cause inflation, but I think we're sort of between a rock and a hard place.
Obviously, there's tit for tat, right? And particularly on issues like this, there is usually a lot of tit for tat. What happens if the whole world gets together and gangs up? What happens if the unintended consequence of the ERS is that BRICS starts to add more letters of the alphabet, for example, more of a group against the US dollar, against the United States? Is the US that powerful to be able to overcome this? I mean, obviously you would say, yeah, of course, everyone needs the US. All that money goes through those big banks in the southern part of Manhattan there as well. But what is your view on how the world reacts to all these tariffs? I mean, we're not just talking about those, we're talking about many allies. Canada is an ally of the US, and yet Justin Trudeau, referred to as Governor Trudeau on the first day of Trump's presidency by the man himself sitting at the Oval Office. I mean, that hasn't happened before. Then you've got Australia absolutely panicked that there will be tariffs on Australian steel, which could kill the Australian economy and make it really hard for Australians to buy those billions and billions that we're meant to be spending on US nuclear submarines. What happens to the relationship with the rest of the world here?
Yeah, no, I think these are very good points, Aaron. I think it definitely doesn't strengthen them. I think the tactic is an aggressive tactic to bring in money here to the United States, and I think could it be damning to relationships? Absolutely. I think there could be significant issues to relationships across countries. Now, what will be the ultimate impact? I mean, it's hard to foresee everything, but it doesn't strengthen relationships at all. And if anything, it gets more people against the United States. Now, if it depends on how tactfully and if it's just broad based. I mean, there's still some things that we need to learn, but I do expect more broad based tariffs than what are previously, what we previously had. In terms of, is the U.S. that powerful? I mean, right now we're still the largest consumer, so it is quite powerful. But if we start poking at the bear and all of a sudden the bear becomes all the countries outside the U.S., that's an issue. So I mean, we have to be. I think the tactics and approach. I mean, obviously he has his ways, and that's how he wants to do it and fight it the way that's been unprecedented. That being said, I mean, we'll have to see how this impacts all countries and our country itself.
Let's talk about Bitcoin. A lot was mentioned during those speeches that went on forever. It felt like the speeches went for longer than 24 hours in a day. But he said so much. He spoke about immigration. He spoke about DEI. But one of the things he didn't speak about was Bitcoin. And there are a lot of investors out there who are hoping and praying and believing in him. There are some critics of Trump who say he promised that he would do a lot for crypto, but all he did was launch his own meme coin a few days prior, which went ballistic, 18,000% increase in a day, pulled back a bit. Bitcoin hovering around the 109,000 US dollar mark as well, which is pretty incredible. Investors have a lot of hope and trust in Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, the crypto side, I think we've gone to the side within crypto. I mean, I think David Einhorn made a pretty interesting comment about like what kind of part in the cycle we are with cryptocurrency. I mean, when you have cabbies, taxi drivers, restaurants, waiters, waitresses talking about their crypto portfolios, that's typically when you got to the top of a cycle. Now, clearly there's a need for digital assets, and I think if you look at cryptocurrency overall, will it make sense in the future? Yeah, it makes sense. Does it make sense right now at 109,000? I mean, it's being backed by nothing. Now, ultimately, I think there's a need. I think prices have gone way up and to the right, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, quite honestly. And I think the hype will stay there for some time, but I think it's going to be painful for a lot of investors.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. It's an incredible time. There's so much we could still talk about, obviously, with these topics, but appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Brad.
Perfect. Thanks, Aaron.